Jello Beats, holla at me.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and another video. I hope you're all well. Today I'm going to be discussing rest periods and how they could potentially have an impact on your training. This is a question that I do get quite frequently, and I think it's more prevalent to my squats. It tends to be sort of how long do you take for rest periods on your squat sets that is the general query, and I think this is mainly quite relative to the loading that I'm using on squats and the amount of sets that I'm able to do at that specific loading that intrigues people into how long I am resting. First things first, guys, I think it's very important to think about rest periods with an open mind. Whilst the literature will suggest that longer rest periods may be more optimal in terms of both accruing training volume and keeping weight on the bar and gathering intensity, I think that it's very important that we realise that there is a time and a place for shortened rest periods. And the only reason, well, not the only reason for that, but there is a big reason behind that, like looking at metabolic stress and a mechanism, and that mechanism of hypertrophy. Shortened rest periods will generally involve more cell swelling, more blood volume, and therefore targeting more so metabolic stress as a mechanism. But I do think that that only lies in certain situations, and that we should definitely open our eyes to, are we taking long enough on some other movements that may be more focused on mechanical tension and muscle damage as mechanisms. So with my perspective, it's very simple. The answer is I take as long as I need and I go when I'm ready. Now, for most, this is something that you can understand, but for newbie trainees or newer trainees, it's something that will come over time, guys. You won't be able to effectively gauge an optimal rest period until you've tested and tried, trial and error, time and time again. Was this long enough? Oh, okay, maybe it wasn't. My performance was to detriment of my performance if I went too soon. It's like, you've got to go when it's optimal for you, and that just takes time to learn when you're ready to go. It's something that you do once you get in tune with it. It's this confident feeling of getting under the bar, knowing you have enough rest and knowing you've recharged your batteries in that rest period so that you can execute that set with absolutely everything. With my sets on compound exercises, it's like I tell myself, like, head on, like, get your head on. You've got to do this set perfect. Execution's got to be perfect. Whether I'm going for beating numbers in the book, whether I'm retaining numbers in the book, everything's going to be picture perfect. And that includes rest periods. And someone actually asked me, I think Celine asked me, about when I'm managing variables, with all the variables that I'm trying to tick boxes and be so efficient at, do I tick the box of timing rest periods and making sure that every set is like this perfect time period? I think the most perfect way to rest is literally go by feel. Because as you diet down, you will most likely need more rest in between sets to efficiently perform underneath loads. You just will, because you'll be more tired, more mentally and physically fatigued. You will need to take slightly longer in between sets. That's just natural. And yes, like, the length of the session is going to be slightly longer. But with timing rest periods, the only thing that you're really achieving by doing that is you're just keeping the workout time and the workout perimeter the exact same, which is, of course, a variable that you might need to manage. You don't want to be training for 3 hours just to fit your squats in. But I do think that the main thing that you need to be focusing on is load on the bar and execution. And if resting a little bit longer allows you to do that, then I think you should literally take that opportunity with open hands. Now, there is definitely a place for shortened rest periods. I think the main reasoning, or amongst reasonings, is that with a shortened rest period, we're going to be probably targeting metabolic stress as a mechanism of hypertrophy, because we're gathering more blood flow, more cell volume, and more hyperplasia, and we're able to probably work in a higher rep range. Because with shortened rest periods, the ability for you to be cognitively there is a bit different. So I would imagine that this short rest periods would be more functional in an environment where you're doing higher rep work. Rationale behind that is that there's less thinking. When you're underneath 180 kilos and you're going for max reps on a squat, you have to think about every fucking rep. Because if you screw one of those up, boom, that's it, it's game over. The bar's on the pins. But if you're using 150 kilos on a leg press doing sets of 20, you can mess up one of those reps and it not be to detriment of the entire set. You can still probably get away with that. So I do think the shortened rest periods do probably work better with higher rep ranges. Now, I also think there's some arguments to suggest that the fatigue aspect, or the mental fatigue aspect of doing lots of long rest periods, can be quite draining, and you can find yourself slipping focus throughout a session. Let's say you take consistently rest periods above 1 minute 30 or 2 minutes. That makes for a long session. Focus and drive, neural drive throughout the session will most likely decrease slightly. So I think there's some argument to be had that shortening rest periods can increase or decrease mental fatigue intra-session. And that if you start to lose yourself and lose focus, maybe looking at shortening your rest periods, getting some headphones on and just going at your session would be slightly better for you than spending lots of time talking to a mate, looking at your phone, etc. These things are just things that are going to take you out of the session. I think a few of the other arguments for shortened rest periods are supersetting antagonist muscle groups. So let's say you're doing a bicep curl and you superset it with the tricep push down. The thing that we've got to think about there is, realistically, is that massively affecting training performance? And it's not. Like, you just got to think, when you're taking rest periods into account, are we maximizing training performance? Or are we doing something that's to a detriment of training performance? So supersetting a try and a bi move, like, that's not really going to affect things, guys. I think, again, the final thing that we've got to take into account is preference. Like, some people just don't have the time to be taking 2-3 minute rest periods. They have, a 9 to 5 job. They get home at 5:30. They get in, they eat, they go to the gym, they train, and then they've got to get home and have some family time with their kids or their wife or their girlfriend. And we've got to factor that in. Like, not everyone can rest for super long rest periods. So, guys, I think the main take home is that it's very much an open door. We need to take into account preference, but in most aspects, rest will be generally longer on compound exercises and potentially shorter on antagonistic muscle groups that are paired together as supersets, or your latter movements, your more isolation or secondary moves, can be slightly shorter in length. Try not to affect training performance where you can. Maximize training performance as much as you can. And yeah, guys, any questions, please ask. And I will see you in that next video. Cheers, guys. See you in a bit.